There are two groups of international financial institutions, which are World Bank and International Monetary Fund or IMF.
So, 187 nations control the World Bank, a global institution for development.
Its purpose is to eradicate poverty by providing financial assistance to the governments of its less wealthy members in order to boost their economies and raise the standard of life for their citizens. The World Bank will be led by a president, 25 executive directors, and 29 different vice presidents as of 2022. There are 189 and 174 member nations in the IBRD and IDA respectively. Germany, the UK, Japan, China, and the US possess the greatest suffrage. The bank provides loans to developing nations in an effort to fight poverty. The bank participates in a number of international collaborations and projects and works to combat climate change. The World Bank runs a variety of training wings and collaborates with the UN Development Programme and the Clean Air Initiative, both an open knowledge repository and its operation are part of the Open Data Initiative.
Next, we have the International Monetary Fund, or known as IMF. The 190 nations that make up the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, strive for sustainable growth and prosperity in order to boost productivity, job creation, and economic well-being. It accomplishes this by supporting economic policies that encourage monetary cooperation and financial stability.
Following World War II, the IMF and the World Bank were established. Their founding was largely a result of post-war peace movement. These organizations work to promote global economic stability. Both of them are essentially banks, but unlike conventional banks, they were founded by nations instead of individuals. The two institutions had members from the majority of the world's nations. However, it goes without saying that the wealthiest nations were those that handled the most of the finance and ultimately those who had the most power. The World Bank and IMF were made to work well together. The IMF's primary objective was to assist nations who were struggling at the time but were unable to secure financing for nations in need of financial support. For instance, Yemen received a $93 million loan from the IMF on April 5, 2012, to aid in the country's fight against terrorism. In contrast, the World Bank adopted a longer-term strategy. Its principal objectives focused on the eradication of poverty, and it supported specific programs that assisted in achieving those aims, particularly in developing nations. As an illustration, consider their investments in education since 1962 in Bangladesh, Chad, and Afghanistan, all of which are developing countries. Unfortunately, lending to corrupt governments or even dictators and enforcing inadequate austerity measures to get their money back are some of the behaviors that have led to these organizations' reputations declining.